Hey, Jesus fans, welcome to True North Podcast, where we grow closer to God together. This podcast was brought to you by Solid Rock Church in Irving, Texas, and our host, Pastor Ed Snyder. To find out more about this podcast, visit our website at truenorthdfw.org. Now let's join Pastor Snyder in a new direction and a new destination.
And welcome to True North Podcast, another great episode with your host, yours truly, Pastor Snyder. We're glad that you're joining us today. We're so happy about all of our listeners that are on board with us, our new ones that are coming on, all the guest interviews that we have had the opportunity to be with other podcasters to help spread the word about True North Podcast and Control the Beast. So we're getting ready for gearing up for another great episode, 9 levels of relationship and how to deal with toxic people. So get a pad of paper, get a pencil, get your cup of coffee. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and we are continuing Chapter 10 of Control the Beast. And if you remember last week, if you tuned into the podcast, we talked about vital relationships. It takes a team to help us get to the next level of our growth. And so today, the chapter has got so much information packed in that today we're going to cover a little bit more of Chapter 10, and we just might even go into a third session talking about how to handle toxic people. So it's a great time that we're having. It's good information that we're getting out, and I want to encourage you not only to stay close to True North Podcast, but share the links with your friends and have them join in with you. Today, we're going to be talking about 9 levels of relationship. So in dealing with controlling our emotions, managing our emotions, getting the happy emotions, the good emotions, all where they need to be, as well as learning how to manage the negative emotions, the anger, the depression, the fear, the anxiety, and help us become a very balanced individual. We need to really take a hard look at our relationships. So in dealing with that, we have got to look inside, and are we having relationships that are, let me use the word fair? Are they fair to us? In other words, our friendships, relationships are always a two-way street, not a one-way road, where it's not about what they get out of us. It's also what we get out of the relationship or those. Now, relationships impact us. Like it or not, you can tell yourself, I don't need nobody. That's a defense mechanism because you've been hurt in the past. I can do it all by myself. That's because you don't trust nobody. And relationships are not only impacting, they are necessary. Healthy relationships foster healthy emotions, positive emotions in our life. And so in dealing with this, we've got to take that hard look. We've got to see for real, what is that relationship? What is it about? What is it based on? And make sure that well, let me say it this way. Sometimes we try to take a relationship that is at one level and cram it into another level that it doesn't belong. And there it is, conflict, problems, trust issues, and all of that. So today we're going to go over the 9 levels of relationship. And as we go through this, I want you to think about yourself. I want you to think about the relationships that you have with different people and, of course, with God himself. And how are they? Who are they? Do they belong in that relationship? So again, here we go. 9 levels of relationship. Level number 1 should always be our relationship with God. That is the utmost relationship. That is the most important relationship, especially if you are set out to be a good Christian. So, again, we've got to stay close to God because, he is the all-knowing, he is everywhere at all times. It's his wisdom. It's his direction. The Bible says the steps of a good man is ordered of the Lord. So really, folks, if we get this first level down right and develop the relationship that we need with God properly, this relationship is an absolute for all the other relationships to work correctly. Of course, being a pastor and guiding people the right way, in other words, to their relationship with God. When couples get married, well, let me back that up. As couples prepare for marriage, the number one priority is, should their relationship be centered around God? Christ-centered relationships will be successful because it's Christ-centered. In other words, that relationship's based everything upon the two individuals' relationships with God. And if the two individuals have a good relationship with God, they're going to be all right. Not that they're not going to have tough times or rough times, but they're going to make it through and they're going to grow through that. So again, we do not have the wisdom or the ability to know, not even halfway, what is coming at us, but God does. So he protects us. You know, he is called our Father for a reason, and a father protects. So again, folks, we have to swallow our pride. We have to realize that we are limited in our ability and our wisdom, but God is unlimited in his ability and his wisdom. So we ought to have a stable relationship with God, and we are always reading to gain knowledge, and that is very good. I support that. But do you realize the ageless wisdom in the Bible? Just a thought. Get into the Word of God, develop your relationship with God, and everything else that we're going to talk about today, next week, and the following week is going to fall in place, because the number one relationship in your life, your relationship with God, is in order. So just something to think about. Level number 2 is my spouse. Okay. Now, you may be listening to this podcast and you're not married. Okay, that's fine. But you will be, hopefully, someday. You're going to find Miss Right or Mr. Right and fall in love and get married and start a family. This is an important relationship. And as you know, the book that we have written, Control the Beast, is co-authored by my wife and I both. And I again remind our new listeners of our story is that I was a very angry teenager and a very angry young adult and had to learn how to get my emotions under control or managed. And again, this was 40 years ago. So anger management classes, books, non-existent. Anger management classes wasn't even in the universe yet. And so it was Gail and I trial and erring. It was Gail and I praying together, studying the Bible together, and finding the answers that we need, digging it out. And when I would get angry and have an episode of uncontrolled anger, then we would sit down and talk about it and help me get through it. So that spouse is vital. That is your partner for life. So here's a question in talking about this relationship as far as that spouse. And I'm going to ask you this. What is love? What is love? What do you think love is? And many times we think love, it's love when in reality it's lust. It's not the physical, although a physical attraction, yes, it's important and it's a part of the equation. But love is we love the person of who they are, not what they look like. So here's something else that I want you to understand. Love is not just an emotion. It's a commitment-based emotion. So in other words, if without the commitment, love does not exist. So when we're in a marriage, when we're in a situation here where we've got this lifelong partner, we need to not only be in love when we get to the wedding, when we exchange the vows, but we need to grow the love deeper into that relationship. The second most crucial relationship level is that it involves an ultimate trust. So not only do we have an extreme love, not lust, not just the physical attraction. If you're basing your marriage on a physical attraction because they're the trophy wife or they're the trophy husband, you are in trouble right now. So you've got to get past that and learn to love that person for who they are on the inside, their qualities, their standards, their belief, their charm, their quirky ways that make you laugh. You know, not everybody's going to get along 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But through it all, we love each other. No matter how bad of a time the other is having, we still are going to stay by. That is the commitment in the emotion called love. Now, not only is love necessary, but trust has to be an ultimate level right here. For us to trust our spouse, to walk out the door and everything's going to be all right. You know, here's something that is an old school saying, that if you love somebody, you can set them free and they'll come back. If you set them free and they never come back, they never loved you. And so that's hardcore, but that's very true. So again, trust is crucial in this second level of relationship. As long as you are openly have respect and love for your spouse, as long as you consider their feelings, they should allow you to be you without criticism. Okay? Unless you have unmanaged emotional issues going on. So if so, I really hope you're working on them and toward a better relationship. Now, this relationship here on this second level to the spouse also produces the ability to be accountable. Now, folks, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, if you don't have accountability, you're not going to have much of a marriage. If you don't have the trust that you can say, hey, I'm struggling with this and feel safe about it, maybe you ought to go see somebody for marriage counseling. Again, just being real. Just being hardcore here, because this subject that we're talking about on these podcast episodes are extremely important to your success. So again, we've got to be accountable. What do you mean by accountable? Well, when you mess up, fess up. All right. Or you accidentally bump into something, let them know. Here's a prime example. When I got into all of this, Control the Beast, and teaching the classes, the addiction classes, the anger management classes, the parenting skills, when we developed all this content, there was a lot of research. At one point, a probation and parole office reached out to me and asked me if I can help them with the sex offenders that are coming out of prison and help them with their, teaching them some things to help them get away from that addiction and get back into normal life. And of course, I accepted the challenge and began the research. Well, in the research for sex offenders, you're going to bump into some websites that you don't belong, because you're looking up a certain subject inside sex offenders. And of course, I came across those websites. What I did as being accountable to my spouse is I stopped. I called for my wife to come over to the computer. I showed her the website that I was seeing. I also explained to her what I was doing and what I was researching. That way, if she goes back in history or finds something there, she knows about it. There's no suspicion. He already told me about that. And there's an understanding. If I didn't do that, if I was not accountable and just went on about my business, and then she's using the computer and sees the history she's looking something up, and that pops, instant mistrust, instant suspicion right there, because I left her in the dark. So accountability is an absolute must in this level of spousal relationship. All right. Again, we've got to be, this is something that's so important. Accountability is what has kept us together after more than 40 years. And trust me, folks, we've been through the mill. We've had some rough times, and my wife and I has weathered every bit of it and are stronger today than we ever have. We're deeper in love than we ever have been. And we ultimately trust each other. And it's an awesome feeling to be there today. In fact, it's almost an oddity to have this kind of relationship in the society that we live in. Again, just a thought. Level number 3 is another important level of relationship, and that is mentors. You've got to have some mentors, some people that's going to speak into your life. I have mentors in my life, and these people, I have an ultimate trust. I am loyal to them, and I learn from them because I know when they tell me something, they have my best interest at their heart. They can ask me to stand on my head for 30 minutes and I'll do it, or at least try to do it, because it's something that they feel like I need to do, and I trust them with that. My mentors are men. Of course, except for family members, all right. But gender distinction is a boundary that every person should have. Guys, again, you may call this old-fashioned, you may call this ultra-conservative, but your mentors does not need to be another lady. Ladies, your mentors doesn't need to be a man, because of the level of the trust that you have to have in a mentor. You could be asking for trouble. You could go outside the boundaries, and then you've got a problem. You've got an adulterous problem. And so, men, your mentors need to be men. Ladies, your mentors need to be ladies, so that there's a trust there without falling into an area you don't want to go. So when choosing a mentor for your life, you need to be very careful. Again, not just with the sex of that person, but they need to be older. They need to be steadfast in the word, in doctrine, in ethical things, wise and reasonably successful in their life, in their ministry, in their business, whatever area of mentor that you're looking for. They need to be ahead of you, like for years ahead of you, because you're going to learn from them. I learned a long time ago in most cases, when gray hair shows up, my mouth goes shut and my ears go open, because that elder's got something rich to be able to share with me, and I want to listen without me talking. So again, they need to have a firm, solid foundation. Maybe they've weathered a storm. Maybe they have gone through a failure, but they recuperated. They came out of it and came out of it stronger. As I mentioned, I have several mentors in my life. One in particular is our pastor, Kenneth Haney, who pastored Christian Life Center in Stockton, California. He's passed on now, but he was like a father. Nobody replaces my father, but Brother Haney, Pastor Haney, was like a father to me and took me under his wing and taught me a whole lot. I spent 6 years as his executive associate pastor, and in those 6 years, I learned tons more than I would ever learn in a Bible college in those years of that learning institution. Jack Cunningham is another mentor that I've had in my life, and I still have. Actually, he's pastoring on the East Coast, and I'm in Dallas. And of course, both our busy schedules, we get together once in a while. But when I have some tough things, that's my go-to. And so again, it's okay to have a few mentors, not just one mentor. And it's going to give you an extreme step up, heads up on life when you use the level 3 mentors. All right. Number 4. And this is what we always enjoy, is best friends. These are people that I trust. These are my best friends. These are people maybe I grew up with, not necessarily, but grew up with, or I made contact with them, got introduced to them years ago, and the relationship blossomed into best friend status. So I trust them. The best friend is the person that you need to be absolutely comfortable with, and there's nothing better than a best friend. You can be yourself with them without fear of judgment, without fear of criticism. You can be silly. You can joke around. You can say just about anything you want, and you'll be okay. You're safe. They're not going to take that and put it on Facebook or Instagram or spread rumors about you or anything like that. And so you never have to worry about them talking about you behind your back, stabbing you in the back, because they are your best friend. Now, this level of relationship transcends time. In today's world, There's no distance on best friend status. You can be on the East Coast and the others on the West Coast and still be best friends if you have good communication. Now, we'll get more into this a little bit later. A best friend can fall to a toxic relationship. An acquaintance can go up to a best friend. I'm just going to drop that right there and let you chew on that for a minute, and then we'll swing back around, because this is where we really have the problems, is that we try to put people that don't belong in this level, try to put them in there, and it's not fitting. You don't have the trust with them, and you're trying to make them a best friend, and you can't trust them. Or you have a best friend and suddenly they get their head messed up and they violate your trust. They violate your friendship, your relationship. So again, think on that. Let's continue. Number 4, best friends. Number 5, level 5 is good friends. Now, good friends are people that I see from time to time. I enjoy them. I enjoy what they stand for. This group, again, is not best friend level, but are enjoyable nonetheless. Okay, when you're with them, you have a good feeling and you walk away better. You're able to go get something to eat together, perhaps with a group, and again, you laugh, you talk. You're a little guarded. You're not as free as you would with your best friend that you grew up with from the 3rd grade or whatever, but they are good people, and they could develop into best friend categories. So again, good friends are awesome. Level number 6 is acquaintances. Acquaintances. I've met these people, perhaps, and I appreciate them. They seem to be good people, and they may move up to the friend category. Perhaps these are people that I do business with, see occasionally, pass by the coffee shop, and so on. But people often confuse this type of relationship with good friend or best friend category. Please be wise. Again, this is an acquaintance. When my son was much, much younger, he was in high school, like a freshman in high school. Everybody was a great friend. Yeah, this is my great, because he loves people. He's like me, he loves everybody. But I had to teach him, son, those are acquaintances. Those are people that you see passing in the hallway at school. You don't hang out with them. They don't really know you. You don't really know them. They're just an acquaintance, because he thought they were a good friend, but they were just an acquaintance, and they did something and violated their trust, said something negative about him or whatever. So again, be careful on the levels of relationship and make sure you keep people in the proper level so that you don't get confused or get hurt or get something haywire and you go out of control. So be wise. And again, you can and most likely will get hurt or trust broken if you get confused on these different levels. So these are the people that really first need vetting before you can move them up. You need to be able to test them and see if you can trust them. Maybe it sounds weird to you, but as much as I've been through and what I have learned from, this is something that has been birthed out of my heart about understanding the levels of relationship, and there are 9 of them. Next one, level number 7, is on the job relationships. Now, again, don't confuse professional courtesy on the job with a true relationship or a true friendship. Working relationships contain some people you may like a whole lot, and you have, but then there are others that you don't like a whole lot, but you got to get along with them. Okay. Now, again, let me rehearse. There are people that are on the job that are great people, and you enjoy laughing with them at a break moment or a lunch period, or you work with them on a project and you seem to click really well. Again, they're not a good friend. They're not a best friend. They are a working relationship. They are a coworker that you really appreciate and like. But then there are others on the job that you just can't stand them. Okay. And those are, of course, I used this term a second ago, but not to confuse you. These are working relationships. In other words, they're a relationship that you have to have because you have to have that relationship to be able to do your job. Make sense? In other words, you can't cross swords with them. Maybe they're a gossiper. Maybe they're a backstabber. Maybe they are bucking for position and they're going to step on you on their way up. Let's face it, there are those kinds of people out there. All right. So here's what we've got to understand. We got to be careful. It's like, and not to be rude, it's like handling a snake. You can handle a snake, but be careful. Don't handle it too much. And be careful when you do handle it that you don't get bit by the snake. So again, here we go. How do we handle this? They're not doing right. They backstab me, or they backstab my friend at work, my good coworker. You don't belong there. So don't cross swords, because if you cross swords, you're going to cause yourself problems. The boss is going to look down on you because they like the guy or gal, and that puts you in a bad light or puts you in a bad spot. So what do? How do we handle this on the job relationship? Number one, when you clock in, you're friendly, you're courteous, you're professional. Good morning. How are you doing? Good to see you again. Hope all is well, and move on. Hey, Tom, we've got this situation here. How do you want to handle this? What do you think we ought to do about here? And get their advice. Work with them. Don't try to argue with them. Flow with it, and then walk away. When you clock out from that job, or if you don't use a time clock, when you leave work, they stay there. You don't hang out with them. You don't do lunch with them. You don't go play baseball with them. You don't fellowship with them outside the 8 to 5. So again, that's how you can handle and not be tore up, messed up, twisted up, and get angry over a person that doesn't respect you, or anybody for that matter, and they're in it for themselves and nobody else. Okay. All right. Level number 8. Now, this is maybe a little bit of a humorous situation, but it is true. Level 8 are people I love enough to get to heaven. These people who may be oil to my water. They just don't mix. For whatever reason, I've got to be around them, whether it's a on the job situation, whether it's a family member that is there and I've got to see them at the family reunion or whatever. I love them enough just to get to heaven. I don't particularly like these people, but I have to tolerate them. Okay, so I'm not going to ruin my relationship with God and go to hell over this person. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to be cordial to them. And here's what I teach everybody in handling that person that you love enough just to get to heaven. You don't want to hate them, because that's going to set you back in level number 1, your relationship with God. It's going to bleed over into other relationships when you hate that person. And so you've got to pray for them. And here's the key. Look for something good in that person. There's good in everybody. So find the good, they sure love their spouse or they love their children, and focus on that good point to get you through where you need to go. All right. Level number 9, and that's probably this is the level that you have been probably waiting for. And that is toxic relationships. And boy, I tell you what, I've only got a couple more minutes left in our episode here, but toxic relationships have the nature to be very harmful to our emotional and mental health. And they will ultimately destroy us if we continue in that toxic relationship. Beware. You can seldom repair it. It can be through the work of the Spirit of God, through prayer and through fasting. It can be, but it's a process. It's not impossible. Okay, I want to share that with you, because I have hope that all people can find the Lord and be baptized in His Spirit and water baptized and make it to heaven. I'm a pastor that's what I do. All right. But again, when we get into relationships, we've got to be careful of toxic relationships. We keep trying to mess with that. We keep trying to work it. We keep trying to make it better. And all we do is walk away crushed, hurt, and disappointed. It's toxic. It's poisonous. And the only thing that we can do in that relationship is to contain it and put a distance between us. Okay. In other words, in toxic situations, the only thing that can be done is the toxicity of the dirt or whatever you're dealing with has to be put in a barrel, sealed, and buried, put away so it won't harm anything else. All right. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. And so we're going to pick up where we left off next Wednesday in further discussing toxic relationships. And then I'm going to get into the 3 major indicators of a toxic relationship, and then on into how to handle toxic people. It's like 10 types of toxic people. We got a lot to go over. We got a lot to look at, ladies and gentlemen. So join us back next week, next Wednesday. The fresh episode will drop at 9 o'clock on Wednesday mornings. And be sure to share the links. Tell everybody you can about True North Podcast. We'd love for new listeners to come on board and be a part of our community. Go to our website at truenorthdfw.org and sign up for our True North community. I promise I won't blow up your email. I'll give you a weekly email and then offer the new products that we're putting out lightly. Not you have to buy this in 2 days or, time. I'm not going to pressure you, but I'm going to make it available to you. We just want to develop a relationship with our audience through our True North community. God bless. Have a great day on purpose, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us at True North Podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio or any other podcasting platform. If you want to have any questions, visit us at truenorthdfw.org. We'll catch y'all next week.